Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, and welcome to today's webinar, Tips for a Successful Application for Senior Membership, with Matthew Plotner from Ieee and Ieee Member Operations. My name is Scott Levine, and I'm the Membership Manager here at the Ieee Computer Society, and will be your host and moderator today. Before we get started, I would like to address some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive an email tomorrow, which will include a copy of the slides and the recording of this presentation. You can ask any questions in the Q&A box you see on your screen. Matt will answer as many questions as he can following the presentation. If possible, please reference the slide your question refers to. As mentioned, joining us today is Matt Plotner. He has a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics with a minor in Computer Science from Lafayette College. Not only has Matt been an Ieee member since 2006, he has been an Ieee member since 1996. Over the past 25 years, he has supported Ieee in many capacities, including data quality, renewal processing, customer service, online support, and business and data-related services. As part of his current role as the Senior Manager of Member Operations and Member Geographic Activities, Matt supports the Admission and Advancement Committee and manages the Senior Member Application process. And with that, Matt, thank you for being here today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. Hello, everybody. And yeah, so Scott did my introduction, so there's my first slide. That's so easy for me, thank you. But yeah, I've been with Ieee 25 years this month, which is actually since a couple days ago, 25 years. And as Scott said, one of my current responsibilities is I'm responsible for the Senior Member Program that we're going to talk about today. So, you know, we did this application tips for a successful application, but why do you even want to be a senior member? If you're a member of Ieee, what's the benefit to becoming a senior member? Well, the number one benefit is recognition, right? You'll get the professional recognition from your peers for your technical and professional excellence. So there's a great reason to become a senior member. Some people will also become senior members because then they're eligible for leadership roles within the Ieee volunteer community, because some executive positions may require you to be a senior member. Once you become a senior member, you have the ability to refer other candidates. So you can serve as a reference for other applicants and help more people become senior members. Your senior member application, once it's complete, and we'll be going over what all those requirements are in a minute, but it goes to a review panel of current senior members who are going to review your application and see if you're eligible. Well, once you become a senior member, you can serve on those review panels and help support Ieee and support more people becoming senior members. A lot of people will ask for a letter of commendation, and we are happy to provide that on the achievement of their senior member grade, and it goes to their employer. That helps a lot of people in their jobs to be able to request that letter of commendation. And then, you know, some people will really like this. We have announcements, you know, whether it's your section or your society, such as the Computer Society. They'll put out announcements of, you know, people who recently became senior members, congratulating people. So you get to see your name in print somewhere. Other benefits that you would get once you become a senior member, you'll get a complimentary society voucher that you can try out a new Ieee society. Probably very happy in Computer Society, but hey, you can give another one of Ieee's technical societies a try. And the one thing I think is pretty nice and is you'll get a senior member plaque. And as we advertise it, it is an attractive engraved fine wood plaque that you can proudly display to your colleagues, clients, and employers. So you can imagine your name there. That is an actual plaque with nobody's name on it, but it could be yours. So there's, you know, just a quick, you know, run through of what are the benefits to senior member? Why do you even want to become an Ieee senior member? So how do you become a senior member? What are the requirements? Well, in the IEEE bylaws, it sets forth the criteria for elevation to senior member grade as follows. These are the three main things. Number one is the candidate shall be an engineer, a scientist, an educator, a technical executive, or originator in IEEE designated fields. Number two is the candidate shall have been in professional practice for at least 10 years. And number three, the candidate shall have shown significant performance over a period of at least 5 of those years. And we'll go into each of those three main requirements in a minute. In addition to those requirements, you also are going to have to supply 3 references who are current members of IEEE and are of at least senior member grade or higher, which would be fellow, senior member, or honorary member. Now, in this case, where I'm talking about you putting in your own application, you do have the ability to get nominated by somebody if somebody knows you. In that case, that nominator would count as one of the references, and you would only need 2 additional references. But we'll talk more about references in a minute as well. So let's look at those 3 main requirements. You're going to have to be working in one of the IEEE designated fields, the professional practice for 10 years, and significant performance for 5. So let's dive into those a little bit more. So the designated fields is simple. It's on each application. It's just going to be a checkbox. You're going to say which of the fields you work in. But it's got to be, these are the ones that IEEE is designated as IEEE designated fields. So you're either going to be in engineering, computer sciences and information technology, physical sciences, biological and medical sciences, mathematics, or technical communications, education, management, law, and policy. Simple requirement, easy checkbox on the application for you. Here's where you're going to start getting into some more stuff onto the application. So let's talk about these 10 years of professional experience. One good thing is that we do give credit towards education, and we give it as follows. So if you have a baccalaureate or a bachelor's degree or its equivalent, we'll give you 3 years towards that 10 years of professional experience requirement. If you've got a master's degree or equivalent, we'll give you 4. And if you've got a doctorate, PhD or equivalent, you can get 5 years of credit towards the 10. So no matter how long it takes you to get any of those degrees, that's the number of years of credit we'll give you towards the 10 years. And then you just have to have work experience for the remaining of those years to make up the full 10 years. And it would have to be separate from the time you were earning the degree. So many times people are working while you're getting your master's or doctorate or even your bachelor's degree. You wouldn't be able to count work and school at the same time. So if you have a doctorate, we're going to get 5 years of credit. You've got to have 5 additional years after that, or before possibly, depending on when you're getting your doctorate. But also a key thing to remember on putting in an application, sometimes people are hesitant to put it in, but you don't have to have a degree. There's actually no requirement to have a degree. If you've been working in one of the IEEE designated fields for 10 years or more, excuse me, you don't need to get a credit for any education at all. So it's not a requirement to have a degree. Okay, significant performance. So this is probably really where it's the part where you really got to get into it and figure out some good examples to put into the application as to where your performance would be deemed significant in all of your working history. But sometimes many applicants assume that significant performance requires to have won an award, to have patents, or to have extremely sophisticated technical accomplishments. While those are all definitely significant, it's not the case that you have to have one of those. So having like a substantial job responsibility, maybe you're a team leader, maybe you're a task supervisor, an engineer in charge of a program or a project, or an engineer or a scientist who performs research with some measures of success, some papers. Maybe you're a faculty member and you've been teaching courses with research and publications. all of those things are indications of significant performance. So it doesn't only have to be awards and patents and extremely technical accomplishments. Other things that also, just to give you some examples, and these are not the only examples of things that would be deemed significant, but these are many great examples. Maybe you've had some substantial engineering responsibility or achievement. Maybe you have, published, some engineering or scientific papers, books, or inventions. Maybe you have had some technical direction or management experience in important scientific or engineering work with evidence of accomplishment. Maybe you have made some recognized contributions to the welfare of the scientific or engineering profession. You could have, helped with the development or furtherance of important scientific or engineering courses that fall within the IEEE designated fields of interest. Maybe you've made contributions equivalent to anything we've talked about here in other areas, though, maybe in technical editing, patent prosecution, patent law. As long as these things provide to serve to the advancement substantially in the IEEE designated fields, those all count. These are just some examples. I think the key thing is in significant performance to clearly say why you feel that what you're doing is significant, and clearly put that on your application, which I'll talk about in 1 second. One thing important to know is that significant performance does not need to be the most recent 5 years, nor does it need to be 5 consecutive years. But important thing about the most recent 5 years, sometimes, we have retired members, a life member who might say, oh, I can't be a senior member. I did my work, years and years ago when I did significant performance. It's totally okay. As long as it's 5 years worth, you could qualify. Okay, so again, both of these sections are probably the most important part of your application. So knowing that once your application is done, it's going to go to a review panel where multiple people on that review panel who are current senior members are going to read that. This is probably the 2 most important sections on your application, where you will list your professional experience and your significant performance. So if you put your mind in the mindset of the person who's going to review your application, just make it as clear as possible for them. So when the panel reviews it, they could read your summary of your professional experience and see exactly that it adds up to 10, possibly including your credits for education. They will have the ability to read your resume or CV because you'll attach it to the application. But in this section, you want to put a nice summary for them so they can really see clearly that you meet the 10 years of professional experience. And same on the significant performance. You'll have a text box where you're going to type that in. Make sure, especially on this section as well as professional experience, that your summary includes the dates. Significant performance, you want them to find 5 years worth. So if you don't put dates in, they will have to go hunting for them. And you don't want to write an extensive write-up that makes the panelists have to hunt for the evidence to find what counts as significant. And a key thing we always say to everybody on their application is you're going to attach your resume or your CV on the attachments tab as a backup to anything you write on these 2 tabs for professional experience and significant performance, but please don't just cut and paste. Again, you don't want the review panel to have to hunt to find the information that qualifies you because they might not find it. You want to put it in these 2 sections and make it very clear as to how you meet those requirements for 10 years of professional experience and 5 years of significant performance. Okay, references. This is another part that sometimes holds people back from submitting a senior member application. So number 1 key thing is you do not need to know your references personally. So many times people say, I don't even know anybody who's a senior member, so I can't even apply. But you don't need to know them. They can read your application and read your information and support you. They do have a reference form that they have to fill out where they'll say right on it if they know you personally or not. And it doesn't affect anybody because they have read they will have read your application in order to provide their reference. So they'll know exactly what the review panel would know when they see your application. So how can you find references? Well, we always point people towards their section chair. Your section chair can help find some references for you. And your section chair may know, as many sections sometimes will hold senior member nomination events. So they might end up saying, hey, we're doing a nomination drive, come to it. We'll help you find some references. And we also point people towards Collaboratech. Not only in Collaboratech could you locate your section chair, you could locate other senior members or fellows and message them and ask them if they'd serve as a reference for you. We've actually seen people just go into the membership forum in Collaboratech and just put a request out asking for references. And people comment back and say, sure, add me, I'd be happy to do it. So there's lots of ways to find a reference. I'm on my last slide already. I'm so quick. So with that, we are here to help, me and my team. So don't ever feel that, you're alone out there if you need help to do your application. So first off, you can go to our website on ieee.org/senior member, not only to start your application, to read more about your doing the application if you have questions. And me and my team are here to help. The best way to contact us is using our alias, senior-member at ieee.org, because it would go not only to me, but to my whole staff. Especially with references, we do get a lot of requests for that. We'll put you in touch with your section chair if you haven't been able to find them. Sometimes we just have a crew of people who really like to support senior member, and they're there willing to help. And there's my contact information as well. And that is it. It's really not a hard process or a scary process. And good luck. I would say go out there, start your application, and good luck. And with that, I'll turn it back to Scott to see what questions that we have out there.
All right, thank you, Matt. That was excellent and really informative. I think you answered some of the questions as they came in, because I was looking sort of moderating these, but we'll review some of them. In this, you just sort of touched on this, but we had a few people email in about the references and the supporters they need. Any other ways besides reaching out to their section or in their chapter or Collaboratech that you could suggest as a way to find these supporters in references?
Probably, that is the best way. Of course, if you know any people, if you know any other IEEE members who are senior members, of course, I left that off. You could do people you do know. But yeah, the best way and the way we tend to do the most is putting someone in touch with their section chair, because whether they can find someone directly or there usually will be someone who does work with senior members. They might be, like I said, they might be having an upcoming nomination event where they will do a WebEx and help you, find out your qualifications from you and put you in touch with some references who will help support you. So they're probably really the best way. And over the past year or two, Collaboratech's really become another way to find people. And of course, my senior-member is at ieee.org will help you too if you can't find it through those routes.
Excellent. Staying on the references, how many do you need for your application?
Okay, so if you're applying on your own, you do need 3. If you do get nominated by somebody, the nominator will count as a reference, so you'll only need 2. The good thing is that your application won't go to a review panel until you have at least those 3 or 2 references complete. So you can actually put more than 3 on your application. We've had people who add 5, 10 people. As soon as they get the 3 completed that they need, it moves forward. It's very helpful sometimes, if someone's busy, they might not get to enter their reference for you. You don't want to hold up your application. Sometimes people put more than 3, but 3 for a self-nomination if you're just applying on your own, 3.
All right, perfect. Next question. I don't think this is the case, but the plaque you mentioned in the beginning, that is covered by the IEEE. There's no the awardee of this elevated member grade does not need to pay for it, correct?
Correct.
Perfect.
We ship that out to you. It's a benefit of becoming a senior member. This is sort of going a little further into the IEEE member grade progression, but do you need to be a senior member in order to become a fellow? That is correct.
Get too
yes.
mixed up? All right.
Yes. That's a key reason why we have a lot of applications in February in order to meet the fellows deadline in March.
How exact do you need to be with the 10 years?
It needs to add up to at least 10. Like I said, we'll give the credit, the 3, 4, or 5 years credit towards education. But exact meaning, if today is May 18th, would I get credit for 2021? Probably you get credit as 2021 counting as one of those years, even though we're only halfway through the year, yes. I'm guessing that's what somebody means by how exact.
Yeah. Is IEEE service required from the candidate? I'm assuming this means IEEE membership and not just affiliate membership. But that is, yes, you need to be a member of IEEE, correct?
Yes, you do. You do need to be a member of IEEE, but let me clarify that. You don't need to have been a member of IEEE for 10 years, for the 10 years of professional experience. Someone could join today and apply for senior member as long as they've got 10 years of professional experience working, including the education credit. You don't have to be an IEEE member for 10 years. You do have to be an IEEE member, but not for 10 years. Good question. That was an important clarification I should have mentioned.
All right, great. Glad we were able to clarify that.
Yeah.
For those, this is a good one. For those of us who work in classified areas, how should they describe their work?
Yeah, so we do see that from time to time where we do actually, you describe it as best as you can, knowing if there are things that are classified. We do inform panelists when they are reviewing that, it's not appropriate to disqualify someone due to the nature of their work if their work is classified. So you can describe it as best as you can, as generic and general as you can. And the panelists know that there might be cases like that where someone can't go into too much detail. So they take that into account when they know that. So.
All right, perfect. What's the deadline process for senior membership? Is it rolling? Are there like 4 to 6 a year?
Sure. Yeah, there's no specific deadline. We do hold, currently we've been holding about 6 panel meetings a year, and all throughout the year. We space them out about every couple months. The only deadline, like I mentioned, if someone is really wanting to become a fellow, there is a definite deadline. I don't remember the exact date, but I know it's in March. So we tend to see a higher volume by our February meeting because people are trying to get their senior member applications done so that they can then do a fellows nomination. But yeah, there's no deadline. It's rolling. It happens all throughout the year, every year.
All right, perfect. Is there an acceptance rate or a published acceptance rate on how many for people who apply who actually obtain the grade of senior member?
Sure. Yes, we do. I believe it's out there on the website, but it's pretty high. I think by the time somebody goes through this application process, you don't really go through this application if you're not qualified. So it's a pretty high acceptance rate. It's probably somewhere around 95 to 97% who get approved. And if they don't get approved, you get feedback as to why not, and you can reapply again. Make either the corrections, supply additional information. Sometimes it is because someone just didn't make it, they only could calculate 4 and not 5 years of significant performance. So maybe one more year worth of work, they'll have done something more significant and they say to apply again next year. Sometimes it's just a matter of clarifying because they didn't clarify on the application the information clearly enough for the panelists to determine if something was significant. So they might ask some questions. But again, you'll get the opportunity to then make the updates, resubmit it, and it'll go to the next panel meeting.
All right, that's great news. I think that's people listening to this that would found that helpful.
Great.
Along the same way, this sort of goes to the feedback. Is there a committee who could review their CV in advance?
So the only time people really kind of review that in advance is like if we put you in touch with your section chair, they usually will have people who are designated. I know many sections do. I don't know if all do, but many do have someone who is definitely going to help with promoting senior membership, and that's often what they do to decide if they can support them and be a reference. They ask to review their resume or their CV. I also see a lot of people just say, go ahead and add me to your application, because then you can review it right there. They can review it on the entire application. So, but there's not a specific committee for that other than, like I said, in your section.
Okay. The Gene who had the question about IEEE service, he was actually referring to volunteer service as a member, like supporting a role as a section chair. Is that needed?
No, there's no requirement for IEEE service. In the beginning, I mentioned that one of the benefits of becoming a senior member is there are some volunteer roles, more executive volunteer roles, that will require you to be a senior member. But to become a senior member, you do not need to have volunteer experience at all.
Do you know what percentage of IEEE members have the grade of senior member?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure it is available out there. I'm trying to think if I could pull it up quick, but I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and following up that a little bit, I think the Computer Society is probably members who are part of the computer, so it's probably about in the 10 to 15% range, also sort of going off the top of my head. Okay. Not sure if that probably follows IEEE a little bit, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can pull it up while you might ask me another question. How's that?
Sure. All right, here's a good one. Can you provide any clarification about requirements for recognized contributions to the welfare of the scientific or engineering profession?
I'm sorry. Can you just say that again? Because I was slyly trying to look something up. And
Sure, yeah. Can you provide clarification about the requirements for recognized contributions to the welfare of the scientific or engineering profession?
Yeah, let me go back to that slide for you. Yeah, those were all just examples of things that might be considered significant. So let me think. What is an example someone contributed to? Off the top of my head, let me think. You're stumping me on this one. I'm putting my mind in significant performance mindset. Something that somebody did that, helped to advance something. I'm not explaining myself well. I'm trying to look up the question too, so I can read it along with you.
It was by Jason Smith. He if you're looking through the times,
Okay,
he came in at 11:21.
I mean, that one, I guess, is probably more like, was whatever contribution you made, was it recognized, in the scientific or engineering profession? Like, it could be recognized many ways. Like, we've had on there that, we talked about patents, awards. Maybe it advanced some technology of something. It's my examples. I'm trying to be very broad for you, so you could pretty much find things you've done that fit into all of these examples. And these are not the only examples of things that are counted as significant. Like, you explain yourself, you put something in there as to what you did that is significant, and why you think it's significant. That's the importance of that section of the summary that you're going to write also, so that someone's not hunting through your resume or CV to determine if it's significant, but you tell the panelist why you think that is significant. What did you do that was recognized? What did you do that helped the scientific or engineering profession as a whole? I guess would that one would be. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that helps. I think, let's see. Sort of along the same lines, and you might have covered this. They're also asking about how is significance determined, and they sort of talked a little bit about would they need to be like a team leader, or could their position designated by their employer help or hurt them?
Yeah, so what is, I think I'm pulled up the same question as you. So those are just examples, right? You don't have to be a team leader. A team leader definitely would help. It would help a panelist say like, yes, I think that this is deemed as significant. But it's not just being a team leader, it's being a team leader and maybe saying what accomplishments that team did as you led them, in the IEEE designated fields, for example. So I don't think, any position you have is going to hurt you. But I think you could definitely make the case as to whatever your title is, team leader or anything else, what it is that you or that team did that you feel is deemed significant.
Okay. Also, sort of on the significance, I think people have a lot of questions on that.
Yep.
Would
Definitely.
advisory board experience count as a significant contribution?
From my experience, I would think so. Technically, I'm not a senior member myself, so I can't make that determination. But I would think that yes, as an advisory board would. I'm sure the panelists would see that as significant, especially if you explain what that board advised upon.
Perfect. And references can be located in different regions because they just sort of review your resume and your application, correct?
Correct. Yes.
What are the privacy controls around their application?
Well, so when you fill out your application and you are going to find references, you will be giving the references access to your application, so they will see anything you have on the application. But the references and anyone who participates in a panel meeting have all agreed to IEEE's privacy policy, and they, will be reading your application for official IEEE business only, and have all signed off when they are reviewing that they agree to our privacy policy. So, but they will read your application, because it's part of the requirement that you have to have the references and go through this review process.
Here's a question. It's a little long, but how detailed do I need to be when discussing my performance? I think this goes back to my work is government related. I can speak about my role on various projects, but cannot necessarily give details about the projects themselves.
Right. And again, so that is fine. I think the key thing is that you want to demonstrate that there was, for significant performance, that there was 5 years worth. So as much as you are able to say about it when you're working on something that is classified, so that the panelists will be able to recognize that as something significant. So you don't need to give details about it, but, I worked on a project that, helped in this field, that helped develop this technology, however detailed as you can get on it. And you can feel free to say that, it's classified work. You can't give too many details. Like sometimes people who don't work in something classified will put exactly what their papers are that are published or books that are published. And, a lot of times you can't give that level of detail, but you can be broad enough, I think, that can help the panelists determine that it is significant.
Great. I think we've covered this. They might have missed the part. They did ask about multiple deadlines, which it's rolling, and the committee meets about 6 times a year. But they also asked as a follow-up, is there a limit to the number of senior fellows chosen or selected each year?
For senior members, there is not a limit. Fellows is different because I don't know, in the question that you just read, they said senior fellows. Senior member, we have no limit. Fellows, there is a limit. I do not know what it is off the top of my head. It's based on a percentage of the membership, though, I believe. But we do not have a limit on senior member.
Perfect.
Sure.
If you apply initially and your application fails, is this counted against you? I would, based on what you've answered previously, it would not count against you, as IEEE encourages you to get you to senior membership.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, it's not counted against you at all. Most of the times, probably the reason that it is rejected, it's what we call deferred, which means they just couldn't tell by reading your application. They had some things they needed you to clarify. So the intent is you're going to give that information and resubmit it. The denied, we really rarely see those unless someone just didn't do the math right and calculate their 10 years of professional experience, or if a panelist just doesn't think that some of the performance is really deemed as significant, so they didn't get 5 years worth. But again, even with that, they're invited to reapply. We invite both deferreds and denieds to update their application and resubmit their application.
All right, great. How do you consider an ABD, which is the PhD minus the final defense? Would this count as work or school time?
So, a little trick, we actually will count it as to whichever is in your benefit to get to the 10 years. Sometimes, yeah, so if someone's doing a PhD and we would only give, if we're going to give you credit for the PhD, 5 years, because that's your entire school. You might be in school for a lot longer than that. So sometimes it's to people's advantage to count the work time instead of the PhD credit of 5 years. So honestly, we do it whichever it works into your benefit to make sure that you get 10 years. There's some sirens going by.
Yeah, sorry, that's me. I live in downtown DC. Made it probably just about all the way through. They're asking, is it up to the applicant to justify how long an accomplishment took to reach the 5 years of significant performance?
Well, I mean, it's up to the applicant. Definitely you want to put in the time, for something. You definitely want to put in dates, and time frames with what you're saying is your significant performance. The panelists will read that. They might look at your attachments as backups to that. But yeah, it is up to you to make sure to put the dates in that you did work on something. Otherwise, they will say, they can't tell if you meet 5 years if you don't give any dates or time frames around them.
All right, perfect. Do you credit PG diplomas and masters in BA or engineering management?
So, as engineering management, I would assume so. I mean, the degree does need to be in one of the IEEE designated fields, which I have here. Put it back out here. So, I would think engineering management would. I'm not sure what BA was on there, but as long as your degree is in any of these fields, it will count. And again, remember, you don't always need it. If someone has more than 10 years of work experience, we don't need to calculate a credit for a degree at all anyway. So as long as, again, your work experience is in one of these designated fields as well.
Perfect. How many significant achievements do you need to list?
You need to list enough that it'll add up to 5 years worth. So, I mean, someone who was a team leader on a specific project that did something very significant, and that project was 5 years. I mean, that's 5 years right there. That can't hurt to put more. But if you've done something that is deemed as significant, and you've got the dates on it and it's clear, I mean, you could have as much as one if it was a 5-year project with significant results. So again, the significant performance is just very subjective, so you want to do whatever you can to make it very easy for the panelists to say, oh yeah, I see, that definitely is significant to me, and look, I can add it up very easily. They've got the 5 years.
All right, great. Someone just asked, is the senior membership annual fee the same as regular membership? And it is. And
Correct.
when you earn the senior membership distinction, you do get essentially a voucher for a free society membership, correct?
Correct. For a 1-year free society membership. Not ongoing, but yeah, you can try out a new society, see how you like it.
I think that's all of the questions. I think we've covered everything. So Matt, thank you. This was very informative. Thank you everyone for attending and the very active Q&A. I think your questions added all these questions added a lot to the webinar and clarified a lot of the steps in the process. Before, just a couple reminders, the slides and the recording of this webinar will be emailed you tomorrow. And before we sign off, I just want to promote a couple of our upcoming webinars the IEEE Computer Society is putting on. We have one more webinar in May on the 25th at 9 a.m. from our Standards Activities Board on the insight of blockchain standards. And in June, we have 3 additional webinars, 2 from our Distinguished Visitors Program series and 1 from our Build Your Career webinar series. You'll be able to register for all these upcoming webinars and sign up for a few of our webinars on demand with the link you will receive in tomorrow's email. Again, I would like to thank all of you for attending and Matt for sharing his information and all these great tips for a successful senior membership application with us today. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, afternoon, or evening.